Hi there. We're here at Legends at the Table with Syriinx, talking LARP. Welcome, friend.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. So, yeah, I've seen your face around quite a bit in the LARP scene, specifically in Darkness Emergent. But I thought this was just a cool conversation. Lots of questions. I get a lot of questions from people that I play like Vampire at the Table with, and then their only experience with LARP is like Boffer LARP, and I thought. There's not a lot of content that really just talks LARPing in general, and I thought it'd be a good conversation. So, where did you get started with LARP?
Um, yeah, I think my start in LARP is a little non-traditional, or like there's multiple ways to get there. As you said, boffer LARP is most often the first LARP people do.
Mhm.
For me, I had been playing tabletop games for a few years, not that many. I'm still pretty new to all of it, but I had been playing tabletop games, specifically getting into Vampire as a TTRPG for a few years. And at some point, we were playing a chronicle in a local like game store. And at a certain point, one person was like, "Hey, I heard about this like vampire LARP that's happening in another city. We could give it a try." And a bunch of us who played the campaign together, we went there for the first time, and it was, yeah, just a very low budget. It was just, parlor LARP. So one room, which was very shittily decorated. We just pretended it was a nicer room than it actually was. And we spent the entire evening playing just vampires there. And we really, really liked it a whole lot just because of I don't know, it's the type of game that Vampire gives. It's like that trauma and not
Mm.
necessarily, you don't fight. Like there's no, as in Boffer LARP, like you didn't fight or anything. And we just did it for like one evening and then went away, and we just said to each other, like, this was cool. Like we should keep doing this. And it was a LARP that was held once a month. So we had the opportunity and the pleasure of being able to go every month to like a session, which was great, and which was what hooked me into Vampire LARP and just LARPing in general in the beginning. And yeah, I've been doing that for about like, I think that was 5 years ago. And then COVID hit, and the LARPing scene was a little bit like, it was difficult to organize LARPs. And at a certain point during that period, I said, okay, people who I'm LARPing here are telling me stories about all of these other events out there. Once COVID is over, I need to just man up and go to my first weekend LARP. And then finally things settled down, and I managed to go to my first weekend LARP. It was a fantasy LARP, and I enjoyed it so, so much. And ever since then, I've been like hooked and going to every event. So that's kind of how my pipeline into LARP happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I just realized I didn't even mention, in case anyone's curious what LARP is, it's live action role playing. If you probably haven't clicked on the link not knowing that already. What was your first
Yes.
clan in Vampire?
Because I was unfamiliar with LARPing, I stuck with the clan that was closest to my heart and easiest to play, so I played a Toreador. I played a Toreador who ran a marketing business because I really thought I'm gonna have to physically play this person for a full evening, and I was like, I need to have something where I can actually talk about what I'm doing as a vampire, like
Smart.
I was so like, I felt so in over my head. I was like, I can't play like a library or an occult spiritist. Like I don't know enough about that. So stuck with the Toreador. Played her for like 3 years almost.
Wow, yeah.
And even now I still have a very big love for Toreador, but I've
I can see the
found
smile when
pleasure.
you mention it. I can see the
Yeah, but I
smile.
found pleasure in like broadening my horizons as far as LARP goes as well. But it was a very good first one to pick because it really made my first experience like very comfortable to get into.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I was one of those '90s kids that got to play LARP for the first time at a coffee shop. My friends were like, I was loosely aware of what role-playing games were. Like, I'd play, like, a board game that's kinda like a D&D game, basically,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Hey, we're going to a coffee shop to play vampires," and I'm like, "I don't know what the hell that means." Like, there's, like, no context, but I fell in love with it quickly. Yeah, so
Because your first one was a buffer LARP then,
no,
or
it was vampire.
hey.
I wasn't aware of what LARPing was. I didn't know what role playing games really were. Like kind of did, but like from a pull out a map and like walk through a dungeon kind of thing,
Yeah.
not very different, very different. But yeah, I got hooked on it right away. Had a Tremere, lasted 2 sessions and died. So
It's such a wildly different experience as well, which honestly isn't the worst because you get to deal with character death then, and you get to
uh,
actually like know how to deal with that early on.
well, then the GM's like, "Hey, do you want to do something different?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So I ended up at Salubri for like 3 years, which was really different and really
Surprising second choice. Honestly,
it's
not that far of a stretch from a Tremere, but
right. It's like the polar opposite and
going
similar
down the
enough.
food
It's
chain.
yeah, yeah, right. Literally, yeah. Um, yeah. What about Boffer LARP? Where did you? So you said Parlor was first for you, right? Did you
Yeah.
then emerge into the Boffer scene with that weekend LARP? Was that a Boffer LARP?
Yeah, here in where I'm from, small little Belgium. Here we don't call it like Boffer LARP. It's just LARP. All the other types of events that we have. Basically, the second LARP I tried after Vampire was a fantasy LARP. So it was just immediately a full weekend, and it is what you would call a Boffer LARP, as in like there's fighting, right?
Yeah,
So I don't think I see that at back in those days when I like searched and researched LARPing. I saw that some American boffer LARPs had like actual just boffer weapons, like they didn't look realistic. That was never the case here, luckily, but I
that's cool.
expected it to be. But we all used like the fake foam sword and all of the weapons that look like actual weapons. But I played that. I was so incredibly nervous because it was a full weekend. And I was like, I was there as an NPC as well, which is what's the easiest way for me to get into it here because as an NPC, you have like a base, like a home base of all these other NPCs are there as well. Some of them, it's their first time as well. You have a room basically where you could go to if you have questions about your role or if you want to like decompress for a second, talk to other NPCs like out game. So it was a very nice way to get into the game, but I was so nervous that I was going to like play my role wrong or miss something or have to stay in game for a full weekend. What is this? It's not just an evening.
Yeah, that's
So
a
that
lot.
was my second one, and I really like it. And the types of LARP are so different, but both of them have like such a place in my heart where one is more lighthearted than the other, let's say.
And I imagine the more lighthearted one is the fantasy LARP, or
Yeah.
yeah,
It's more like you make it as heavy as you want it to be. And the same goes for Vampire, but with Vampire, it's like a personal horror theme, right? That's what Vampire is all about. It's this, you're monsters and you're having to deal with that in this political world with the fantasy LARP and with just the weekend LARPs here in general. It's you go as hard as you want to. The fighting gives a little from the role play, if you say it like that.
that makes sense.
And then also, if you, yeah, there's a reprieve from constantly talking because vampire is just talking, constantly talking. Whereas with a weekend LARP, you're spending a lot more time in the LARP. Like you're, instead of one evening, it's a full weekend and it goes morning till evening. So you have to manage your energy levels as well, right? So you'll have dips, moments where you're just chilling around, and then other moments where you could decide to have like a very intense emotional RP scene. But it's more about you feeling your energy throughout the weekend and being like, okay, today I really want to go heavy on this scene with this person and then fight in this fight. But yeah, it's more lighthearted because you decide more how much involvement you have in it, I think.
That makes sense. I don't have like any experience actually with buffer. I've never done it other than like I've had lots of friends who've done it. I've heard of it lots. In Vampire, it's usually a pretty narrow place. I know the bigger Vampire LARPs, it's not the case, but it's like here's this small portion of the campus floor, and you walk out of that and you're out of character automatically. What's it like for a buffer LARP when you're on like a campground or like almost like a Ren Fair style setup, and you like how do you break character?
Yeah, that's another part I really like and that makes the boffer lerps, to call them like that here, unique is locations. I'm gonna say the locations are really nice. They're not. They are very shitty, like run down, almost like where youth groups would go to like spend the weekend and stuff, they're those kinds of like locations most often. There's one exception here, which is the Victorian steampunk LARP that I also run now. And we do it in castles, but all the others are in these like actually pretty shitty locations. But what makes them nice is most often they're in nature around some kind of or in a forest, and you're a little bit secluded from the rest of society. And it really makes you feel like you're just not in the modern world. It helps with that. Most often, they have an area, right? So, this big building is our in-game area, the courtyard around it, maybe even the forest around it, all of it is in-game. Most often, sleeping quarters are out-game. Everyone yeah, it's almost always out-game. So people know, okay, if I wanna have a moment, I can go to my room and go take a nap or go just rest a little bit. And often there's also one room that has all the organizational staff in it. So they sit there because they write the scenario. They want to have an overview. NPCs goes there to get briefed. And then also, that as a player, if there's anything wrong, if you need a moment, you could also go there. So there's designated out game areas, but it's most of the area that I'm used to is like in game. But there's also always like a safety net you could go to if you're like, it's a little too much for me. Last weekend, I did a LARP where they even had an outgame eating area. So they said, hey, if you want to have your dinner, because usually at a weekend LARP, eating is also in game. But if you didn't feel like doing that, you could go to this other dining room, which was outgame, and you could go eat there and just relax, which was also really nice in its own way. You could decide if you wanted to have a little bit of relax time or still role play while eating.
Yeah, for a weekend, a whole weekend, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like if it was one event, Vampire often feels like more like a murder mystery type. It's like for one night and it's a
Yeah,
lot of talking and then maybe a monster of the night or whatever, and then more talking or an event, someone tries to assassinate someone. There's usually something like that. But I imagine with a whole weekend, yeah, just having that opportunity to be you're like your brain's fried or you're just
you need
done
more moments like
talking.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
no, it's true.
it's finding the one-on-one easier too, because it's such a vast thing if you wanted to go sit with someone and just talk in character for a minute, like in an open field, I imagine that'd be easier than in a room where everyone's just always looking for someone talking quietly in a corner.
It always feels nicer to have more spaces to explore because one, you could indeed take a walk with someone and have a scene with them privately. I do personally really like whenever private scenes are done at least in the vicinity of other people, because then you can create an opportunity for someone to also get into the scene or for someone to listen in or see something. It creates more play that way if you have a private scene where someone could see you potentially. But having more rooms available to you makes it easier to go if you're not comfortable with having that confrontational aspect, because that's what it is. You create an opportunity for confrontation. If you're not comfortable with that, it's very nice to take someone, go way away where no one will actually see you or hear you. And that is a very nice aspect. I feel like in Vampire or in like the parlor room LARPs, you can still do that, which we did. We had one room which was basically in game, but at a certain point, the hallway also became in game just because you took someone out of the one room is very confining.
It's
um,
limiting. Yeah, it's limiting in a game full of secrets, right?
yes,
100%.
so we had like either a little podium which we had curtains on so people could go there for a private thing, or people just went outside in the hallway or went outside. Um, that also happened because yeah, even if you're in one room, you want the opportunity to have like some kind of secrecy where it's logical for your character to be like, I'm not going to talk about this specific thing in a room full of people.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, have you ever done what we call over here anyways, Nordic LARP rules? Like I'm very new to hearing about them, but they sound like they resolve some of the things I hear complaints about with Vampire LARPs specifically.
Yeah,
The cutthroat.
I have, and I, I'm a really big fan of it, and I take some aspects of those, like, the way they run those events to other LARPs I do. Both of them have their place, but I'm very much against a LARP where there is a heavily read out system. And sometimes you even have to count how many hit points you have. And then in a fight, they will call a stop, and everyone will have to quickly note down how much damage they took on their torso or their left leg, and then they can continue on with the fight. I'm really not a fan of that. Absolutely not. Because it takes me out of the immersion and it just stops the game constantly. I find it very annoying when that happens. With Nordic, it's all about keeping the rules as light as possible. And then also there's this heavy thing of play to lift and calibrating scenes. That's a big thing as well. Is more and more people there say, I don't need to be surprised about everything. If I know something up front, I can go talk to you about that scene. We can kind of see how do we feel like this would go. And then, for example, if you have a fight, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to hit you until 10 hit points are gone and then you die. No, you would go and sit together and calibrate, be like, hey, I really want to fight with you. I feel like strength wise or something, I have more than you or I'm stronger than you. And it's a collaboration of the other person agreeing or disagreeing. You come to an arrangement. And then you also could say, okay, so just to keep this safe, I might, for example, take my right hand and put it on your shoulder to push you down to the ground. That way you could follow down to the ground. You could coordinate a scene to make it safer, but also because some people might think, well, that takes away the surprise for me, or that makes it feel more like theater. It doesn't really, because for me, if I have an intense scene when it's a big fight, or be it physical or just words, I get actually nervous. Like I get butterflies in my stomach and I am actually nervous about initiating that because I still know, okay, I'm gonna go do that now. I'm gonna walk up to that person and I'm gonna punch them against the wall or something. And I get very nervous about it. Having calibrated the scene up front makes me a little bit more prepared in my head to be like, okay, I know this other person is gonna be happy with the scene as well. We're gonna have a nice time. We know kind of what we need to do. And it, for me, makes it easier to be fully in the scene without being worried about the other person feeling safe or the other person being happy about the scene because you collaborated on it. So everyone's going to be happy. You can make it a very intense scene that's still safe because you talked about it. I'm
I
very much
love that.
yeah, I'm a big fan of the don't surprise me. I like a surprise here and there, but don't surprise me. Tell me upfront, and then I can actually think, how will I do this and make it a more impactful scene? And those aspects are more Nordic, what you would say is like the whole, we have almost no system. It's about story more, it's about scenes more, it's about interpersonal things more. Almost never it's like fighting with a buffer sword and hitting with 10 HP.
Right? Yeah, and I noticed, I've run LARPs, I've played in LARPs, long ones especially. People, you get protective of the character you've built over time,
Yes.
and what you don't want is just to like lose that surprisingly because you pissed off a few people that grouped up together, and it gets personal, it gets out of character, and that's ugly business. It's
Yeah, I feel like you could say it's more Nordic or it's just the style in general. I feel like more and more LARPs are leaning towards there's no character death unless it's consensual, so that, silly character death moments don't happen. It's more of a thing of like the player will consent to it, or there's like a few barriers, or sometimes, Nordic LARPs are very often one-offs. So one LARP, that's it. No more after that. So you know that there's a beginning of the story and you know that there's going to be an end of the story. Sometimes you just know up front that your character's going to die. And
right.
then you just already know, make peace with that. It's really nice as well to know that your character's gonna die and be like, okay, I know it's gonna end. So how do I want to end this? But yeah, it makes it so that all the silly character death moments don't happen. And it allows you to be a little bit more flexible in your role play. Because you don't have to be, if you're attached to the character, you don't have to be constantly scared of, I don't want to go to this fight because if I do and I get hit too many times, I die and I'm gone. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember following what was that LARP? Yeah, Houses of the Blooded. That's where it was from, by John Wick. He had a rule set around, so that game was based around these ancient beings that kind of were really cutthroat in their society, and like one of the key things there was, cutthroat equals bad sometimes, right? Like in LARP. So there was a role in there where, the game was about rivals. You would go and get someone out of character and be like, hey, do you want to be my rival? You'd work that out ahead of time. And then that lifted, like you said, lift, like that sounds exactly like that. It's like professional wrestling or anything like that. It's like you're building the best scene you can together rather than, or the best story you can together rather than kind of like trying to just get out on top, I think, which is what a
Yeah,
lot of people do.
a lot of Nordic LARPs, again, as I said, they're like internationally focused, they're one offs. A lot of them also work with you getting a role. So you don't bring your own character. They have a set of pre written roles, and you get put in one depending on your preference that you gave, depending on what they see you playing. Nice thing about that as well, as you said about the rival thing, almost always they make sure that there's connections between the characters. So okay, I'm going to get a role and I'm going to have several pre established connections to other people. One person could be my rival. This other person could be my sister. This other person could be my love interest. And that's something that Nordic LARPs, the one offs, do a lot. And it's very neat because you immediately have these hooks with people and you often upfront before the game start talking about these relationships and how you want scenes to turn out. I think it's a really neat way to make sure that immediately people are connected, because that's something you sort of lack sometimes in the buffer LARPs or the weekend LARPs is people come there with their own character, and you can come with a group of people, or you need to find and approach others and build these connections there. And that's easier for some people. That's a lot harder for other people, but it just very much depends on the situation. Whereas if you get a pre-written character with bonds already established, makes it easier because you go in game and you're like, these three people I already know. The rest of them I can find out in game.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe diving in. I do want to get to Darkness Emergent. I don't want to keep you all day, especially with your little kittens running around. But so just to give you context for like where I come from in LARP, I mentioned where I got started. Then I played in the Camarilla organization, like back in the early 2000s in New York, which it was something. There were, there's some really great things in people that watch this like LARP. So it's like, I think some of the challenges are you get these really, really long characters, and that can be difficult in a place where it can sort of box out newbies or people that are remaking from really enjoying or being able to play the game. I moved to Canada a couple years after that, and then I got involved during the Requiem phase. I got involved in Canada at Midnight, or CAM as they call it. So that was that's I think they were originally part of the Camarilla, and then they like split for national kind of reasons or something. Um, so Canada at Midnight was on Requiem at that point, and I ran a venue for a very short amount of time. I like played in it for a little bit, and then I stepped up because I had background in it
Mhm.
when it was that or it was going to tank, basically, like at the time. So it was a very small place too. Like I'm north of Vancouver in a very small city, so it was an interesting ride, but you know, I think this new era with Darkness Emergent is something different than anything I've experienced in the vampire scene. From what I see, I think I saw something like that was maybe a precursor to it. I think it was New Orleans. They did some kind of major event in a hotel, like back when CCP owned the vampire line. I think it was before Paradox even.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I I want to say it was called Saturnalia, but I wasn't there and I do remember it and I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
So does this Darkness Emergent to me sounds like closer to, it's like a mixture of, how do I put this? Like you explained that the fantasy LARPs are often weekend based. This is kind of like that. And I know there are other events, like I think yearly for Canada at Midnight, they have like Kane, which was like a national, or like it was, all the venues come together for one night or one weekend. This is Darkness Emergent is a multi-day thing, is it not? Or is it just a one nighter?
Yeah. They are an immersive experience. I don't think they don't call themselves just a LARP because they do combine different things. They basically stretch from normally like a Thursday to a Sunday, so it's almost half a week, but they combine a convention with a LARP. So where it's so logical that you're playing vampires, so you LARP during the evening times when it's dark outside. But during the days, they then put in this like convention aspect of it with panels, with tabletop games, with guests coming over, even like side LARPs that you could do. So it's this combination of a convention and a LARP for just vampire audiences in general is what they do, which is why
Mm,
it feels different from a normal just LARP.
yeah, that makes sense. And there's always been this, overlap or well understanding that, Vampire is an adult game, right? So I imagine there's a mixture of afters, let's say, with maybe drinking or whatever. That is there that sort of thing like right on the premises or
Yeah, it is indeed an 18 plus like event, and they organize after our events after the LARP ends, and sometimes they're still in game, so you can still role play there, but most often they're out game to decompress after the game. And
Mhm.
it's sometimes they have a club, they put up like a whole club space, sometimes it's karaoke, sometimes it's a rave, so they do all these things after the LARP as well. So it's like a day of convention, an evening of LARPing, and then afterwards, sometimes even more LARPing or just partying and dancing and stuff.
Vampire's always had its goth roots, right? And so that's
Yeah,
not
it's
surprising.
so obvious. It's
Yeah.
so obvious when you see people dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So these are a couple times a year and they choose places that are probably geographically kind of spread out through the US, right? It's US only at this point. And
Yes, yes.
and that's put on by Night Studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They so far they did 2 events per year, and it is organized by Night Studios. They now have gotten into it seems like, as far as it's known right now, the LA one is gonna be set. So they did one last year in LA in May, and it was really good. And now, next year in May, they're also gonna do it yet again in LA, and that's going to be their big event. But then they also looked to do a smaller event the second time in the year, like more towards November. And it was really nice. I've gotten the pleasure of going to LA first and then going to Atlanta a few months ago as second one. They feel vastly different in a way. It's really nice to have both of them. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine that if a LARP is organized in LA, it's gonna be pretty big and it's gonna
Yeah.
be the amount of people they let in, like, the amount of tickets that they sell are also, like, higher in LA, and in Atlanta, it was limited because they wanna keep the group smaller. It's yeah, there's more possibility sometimes to, like, network at the LA one, but
Mm,
then for me personally, the, like, smaller one in Atlanta felt more like a LARP that I was used to because it's just a smaller group and you feel like, "Okay, I've
right.
seen these people before." Oh, they're both exciting, but in a, like, in a different way for me, which is I really like that they do the, like, one big event and then one small event. 20 in 2027 wait, is it in 2020? I feel so bad right now, but I yeah, 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 it's in 2027 that they're gonna do one on a cruise boat as
Wow.
well. So, very curious how that turns out, but yeah, they are definitely experimenting with what kind of event they wanna run and how they wanna organize these kinds of LARPs.
It's a neat idea, right? Because like when you think about vampire in the context of like the normal like conventions, there's a lot of players that just play vampire. They don't necessarily do D&D or other games, or they stick to like the World of Darkness games. And I think it sounds like a weekend they can kind of get together with other people that do this and just, play vampire. just lean
Vampire
into
is its
that.
own scene, right? It's the same as, like, on the D&D side, you have people who only play in D&D, and
Right.
they will only play in D&D. And then on the vampire side, you also have people who will only play vampire. Both of it have its own, like, spheres of people in it. I feel like that's why an event like Darkness Emergent works, is because it's very obviously targeted towards just people who are into Vampire the Masquerade and World of Darkness even in general. What works is they can get in non-LARPers or people who are new to LARP as well because they offer it as a convention as well. And there's these other things outside of the LARP as well that are happening, which may convince you as a non-LARPer to be like, I'll give this a try because this LARPing part sounds fun, but also I know that these people from LA by Night are going to be there and this panel is going to be happening and it seems like a fun event. And then you get dragged into LARP as well, and then you think, "Oh, this is really fun," and then you keep going. But it's wild how many people there are. It's absolutely wild because in
Yeah,
LA, I think it's like what around 150, if not like more people, and it's just wild to consider. Wow, there's so many vampire fans out there, and everyone's so passionate, and interested in this specific system and setting.
right. I was thinking about that a little bit with like the LA by Night folks. I saw like photos of them on the floor LARPing. And as someone that ran LARP previously, and like also have bounced previously in my life, and I'm just like thinking about not the security of it, but I'm just thinking, oh man, that must be hard for them at points. Like there's a lot of fans, right? And I imagine groups flock to them a bit as far as like the celebrities that go to these things from LA by Night.
So far, it's been very good
Mm.
as I've heard so far, because they did indeed have LA by Night people coming in. They had some Paradox people coming in at some point. They had these like more well-known people in the vampire community come
Hmm.
in, and it's been very good for them. Like people have been very considerate. They organize these moments of like you can get an autograph, you can get something signed, you can go take a picture with them. They organize those moments as well. There's time for it. But also, yeah, it's double, as in like I'd say pretty much overall people are very considerate about it. And during the LARP as well, when they are playing their characters, people tend to be very considerate. And there's always going to be people. I mean,
Yes,
if
yeah,
you're
for
a
sure.
very big fan of
Yeah,
their character, like you're
yeah,
gonna try to find a reason to go
of
interact with
course.
them, and like you might stick around them a little bit more. I feel like in general people will consider it about it. In LA, it did once happen where I was having a conversation with someone and then someone else would just come up and talk and tell this person like, "Oh, hey, I'm a really big fan. Like, get and take a picture with you right now." And they did that because like what it feels awkward to be put in the situation of like, do I say no now? Do I say yes?
Right,
That did happen, and it's a little bit it's just a small moment of like, okay, well, this is like not in the game, but it
right.
passes briefly, and it's not super much of an annoyance. So I feel
That's
like
good.
all in all, it brings more benefits than it there's like lesser parts to it.
That's cool. Yeah. I saw the Atlanta one was a more recent one, right? And that had like Mark Meir is in that one. That's cool. What is there so there's more than one night of LARP. Is it tied together? Is there like a theme through the weekend where you're playing the same character, or how does that
Yeah. So the event is always just one story, right? You go to LA, it's going to be one story, and then there's just multiple nights of the LARP. So usually there's about 2 to 3 nights of actual LARPing. It's also contained to, I would say, um, like 5 hours-ish, or well, like, maybe from, like, 6 to midnight or something would be the LARPing hours, and you just know, "Okay, I have this ongoing story that's gonna be throughout 2 to 3 nights," and you just continue on in the next night as if it's, in game, it's also just a new evening for your kindred because the evening has ended. So you do know when it begins, when it ends, and it's up to you to decide what you wanna do in between that, and they do introduce new story elements per night. Like, I know in Atlanta, there was this whole curse thing going on with the Malkavians, and some of the Malkavians began the weekend with like this mark on them that they didn't know what happened or how they got it or whatnot. And they had gotten these like little time stamped notes with them in an envelope to be like, okay, during this first night at this hour, you can read this and this is what's happening to you. But then there were things where it's like, this is only going to happen in the second night, right?
Hmm.
So it's paced throughout the different nights of LARP, whereas like there's still gonna be story at the end, right? It's not gonna all
Right.
happen in the first night and then, "Oh, well, you solved it
Yeah.
all."
Now talk a bunch.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Did you get into LARP with or Vampire in general with V5 and then with the new system?
I vaguely remember playing Dark Ages as, like, a first one or something like that.
Mhm.
Vaguely, vaguely, or, like, even V20, I remember vaguely starting it, but when I personally really got into it, it was V5. So,
Mhm.
luckily, I never had to, like, go over to a new system and be like, "Oh, I don't like V5," or "I really like V5." I missed all of that. I'm just
Right.
like, "I like V5. It's fun. It's good. I don't mind, that there's other systems and other
Right.
versions of it."
Yeah. Absolutely. And to be fair, there were so many like Requiem and then V20 was like a 20th anniversary
It's a
that
lot of them.
I don't think they knew that it would like bring out like people that maybe retired Vampire in droves when they made V20. I think they did it more as like a nod to people, you know, and then it kind of
Yeah.
reignited some stuff. Um, there is a new LARP system though as well as of the last few years, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
still rock paper scissors? Is it still
Uh,
the
yes. So, personally, I have opinions on any system that has a big book, for
Mhm.
LARPing. So it's definitely V5 based, right? They made the LARPing system based off of V5, and it's rock paper scissors. I do have to say, wait, can I reach them from here? Hold up.
all good?
I do have to say, the first time I went in LA, I was like, it was rock paper scissors, and I didn't know how I felt about it. I still am not fully convinced, but they got these, like, really cool, metal game cards
Cool, they're metal? That's cool.
that, in LA, I didn't notice it, but in Atlanta, I saw people using them, and when you needed to go rock, paper, scissors, shoot, like, they're like, "Okay, I drew a
Like
card, and I'll wait to show it to you, and then I'll
yeah,
show it to you," and I was like, "This is actually really nice." It makes it a little bit more up to chance, and I don't know. It was very nice. So, yes, it's still rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Yes, it's still of it feels like V5, as in, like, you have all the disciplines, you have all the merits, you have, like, going through the book and making your character. Do I feel like Vampire could be played without that? Absolutely. Yes. Do I feel like you need some rules if you're gonna be doing an event for, like, 150 to 200 people? Yes, absolutely. So, I feel like they're trying to manage things as best as possible with
totally.
using the system for how big the event is. If it was smaller, I'd be like, "Throw away the rules. Just, like,
Yeah,
do something lighter."
I get that. We had, in Requiem, it was a dice, believe it or not, which really threw me off because I grew up on the rock, paper, scissors for LARP, so I was like, "Wait, you roll a D10?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "How many?" "You roll 1," and it was like your dots turned into a bonus on that dice, but I didn't like it as much because you'd be, like, reaching for the most recent furniture or, like, on the floor, you know? Because like,
Yeah.
where do you roll a dice, you know? It makes sense that you would
The first Vampire LARP I ever did, it was actually rolling dice. So it was based on V20, uh, that LARP, and we had our dice with us, and when we wanted to do something, we actually rolled our dice as in, like, a TTRPG. Not the best, but it was the way it was back then.
right,
And coming from that, and then now right now, there's gonna be a Vampire the Requiem LARP happening here soon. They're soon gonna have their first session, but they completely went, like, more of the Nordic route with all of that as well. They use, like, a really, really system where you can use they only have disciplines which can actually, like, be used in roleplay. So, obfuscate stuff, like, even though there's no La Sombra in Requiem, but all of those kind of powers where it would be like, "You see this tentacle thing come out of me," you have to tell people because you can't show it.
right.
They don't use that, and it's only disciplines that, like, they rewrite them to be like, this discipline can be used that you can either physically show it or it has some role play effect,
That makes
and when
sense.
you use it, it's just like, okay, instead of telling someone you use dominate, for example, if I would use a compel thing on you, instead of saying, like, "I'm dominating you right now to do this," you'd signal that by using really in your sentence. So you'd go, I really, really, really want you to sit down and listen to me right now. With that usage of really in that sentence, the person knows, shit, I'm being dominated. Like the amount of release signals how high a level the person has. And then you can immediately think, can I do something against that? Or is this, oh, no, I just need to sit my ass down and listen to them.
That's innovative.
So, yeah. So there's all these different types of LARPs where they use other systems and rules and dice and rock, paper, scissors or no rules at all. I feel like I'm personally a person who's like, I love Vampire. So I'll take the iffy rule things with it if it's just like it's a one-off thing. I need to roll some dice and then after that I can keep playing, or I need to rock paper scissors and we'll see what it comes from that. It determines how much I use disciplines and stuff, definitely, because I will kind of avoid that a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal in the end if you just like Vampire and want to play Vampire.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah, you know what? I played the rock, paper, scissors for years. As like I told you, it was kind of like my first role playing game in a lot of ways. And I actually liked it better than dice, which everyone thought was like hearsay. Like I was, blasphemy, right? Like to say that. But I did because it was smooth and quick and we could
Yeah,
just get on to the role play. So
I get that. If I'd have to choose, it would also be rock, paper, scissors above dice.
hot takes here. You heard it here. So you can get in the comments and yell at us and tell us we're wrong. That's fine. So, all right. Thank you very much for your time. Before we drop off, do you have anything you'd want to shout out or call attention to?
Yeah, if anyone listening wants to know more about LARPing, wants to know more about vampire LARPing, but also wants to feel how it is to actually experience a weekend like that, for example, Darkness Emergent, if you're like, I want to maybe give it a try, but I don't know what to expect, or I don't know how my play will be there, you can go check out my YouTube channel. It's this exact name. It's Syriinx, spelled Siinx. And you can go to YouTube. I make LARP videos there. So I tell you a little bit about the event itself, but then I also just tell you literally the story I went through throughout the weekend. So you can have a little bit of an idea of what you could experience at a LARP like that. So if you're interested, I would say go check it out and have some fun with the videos I have up there.
Excellent. I'll make sure I throw that in the comments for people to see in the
Thank you.
description rather. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.